ever heard of the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 book or manga that was only ever released in Japan? It's true! English-speaking Sonic fans never got this wonderfully strange story in their own language, until now. So, if you've ever wanted to learn the story of how God-type Sonic took on the drunken wizard Eggman, all to save the Princess Amy Rose from petrification and marriage, find out in the Sonic 2 manga, translated, Game Facts Special. This is Sonic the Hedgehog book, a pretty unique storybook strategy guide hybrid that was released in 1992 as a tie-in to Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It features Sonic stories that take place in prehistoric and medieval times, which are separated by some information about the new game and Sega's console offerings at the time. It's a delightful little time capsule of a product, but before we dig all the way into it, let's talk a little bit about how the Sonic 2 manga came to be in the first place. The stories in this book were conceptualized by Kenji Terada, a notable writer/director of many anime series and films throughout the 80s and 90s, and written as well as illustrated by Sango Morimoto, creator of the Adventures of Taro series. This is the same team responsible for creating the serialized Sonic manga for the Shogaku Ninensei magazine, which was published between 1992 and 1994. While this was still early in Sonic's reign as a pop culture icon, it wasn't uncommon for Sega to commission manga to tie into the game's releases. They did it in 1991 with the 3-volume Sonic the Hedgehog story comic published in Mega Drive Fan Magazine, which introduced readers to the character as well as the story of the game. So, when Sonic 2 went into production, it only made sense to get another manga out there for Sonic fans. However, rather than just put out a singular manga on their own, Sega partnered with Japanese mega publisher Shogakukan to feature Sonic manga across their many primary school magazines. This effectively allowed Sonic to reach Japanese kids aged 6 to 12 across 7 different magazines, with manga presented in a number of different styles. Many of these manga have become extremely obscure or entirely lost to time, but great work by people like Pengi over on Sonic Retro has ensured that at least some of these can be enjoyed in the modern day. Going back to Sonic the Hedgehog book, it mostly serves as an origin story of sorts for the Blue Blur, but it also touches on elements of the sequel game that were expected to be included at the time it was created. However, this version of Sonic is far different from the Sonic we know. For those who are unfamiliar with Sonic manga's incarnations, Kenji Terada's story concept follows a mild-mannered blue hedgehog named Nicky, who turns into the hero Sonic the Hedgehog to fight Eggman. Several characters from the Sonic games were also introduced through these stories, but we'll get to those a little later. And now, let's dive into the manga. The front cover of the manga states that it contains the latest information on the popular Sonic 2 game, while promising to be an absolutely fun, extra special manga spread across 30 pages. The index page shows the contents of the book, as you'd expect, but it also has a message for the reader. This book was created for those who love Sonic, and therefore want to see a slightly different Sonic. Sonic lived a long time ago. If you know this story, you will never forget Sonic. Oh, you'll definitely never forget what you're about to see. On the very first page of the manga, we're greeted by the title and objective for this story. Sonic the Hedgehog, the birth of Sonic the Hedgehog. Defeat the Dark Emperor. We're then introduced to an animal skin-wearing version of Eggman from 5,000 years ago, who is referred to in this universe as a sorcerer, and the Dark Emperor of the Hedgehog Kingdom. He's drinking sake out of the top half of a human skull, and generally just looking like the bad dude we expect him to be. Eggman's demanding more sake, or Japanese rice wine, from some bored-looking hedgehogs in the back of the frame that make up the main cast, one of which you might be familiar with already. In the middle of the hedgehog group is an early version of Amy Rose. She still acts as Nikki or Sonic's girlfriend / romantic interest, but her look has obviously evolved over time. Next, we see Anita spilling Eggman's drink on his own head, which makes him angry enough to hit the young child with his magic staff to teach her a lesson. The 90s were a different time. As she apologizes and takes the beating, Anita and Nikki's father, Paulie, dives in to save her and beg for Eggman's forgiveness. The evil sorcerer he is, Eggman takes Paulie's begging as an opportunity to make an example of him and smacks him into the air with his staff, turning him into a stone statue. Anita cries over her father as Eggman states, "This is what happens when people mess with me." A true villain. The next panel shows Nikki coming across Anita, who has ventured off by herself to cry for her father. Nikki, or Prince Nikki of the Kyukyoku family, lends her a sympathetic ear and hears out her problem. Shocked by what happened to her father, Nikki states he will take his place. That might be a confusing translation, but essentially, he's gonna go take care of business. When Anita reveals that the person who turned her father into stone was none other than Eggman, the Emperor of Darkness, Nikki spazzes out, clearly regretting his decision to get involved right off the bat. This is the cowardly, non-confrontational alter ego of Sonic after all. He tries to get out of it by saying, "I just remembered, I have something to do, excuse me," but Anita isn't letting him off the hook that easily. She trips him up and makes sure he sticks to his word. The next page shows Eggman rolling through the land in a stone tank strapped to a T-Rex, which is being inspired to move forward by the citizen of the Hedgehog Kingdom dangling in front of him. The other members of the kingdom watch on in horror. The next panel shows the back of Eggman's tank, which is hauling a container full of all the stone hedgehogs who dare to disobey him. From on top of his impenetrable, dinosaur-powered vehicle, he says, "Boo ha ha ha! Look at this, everyone! If you disobey me, I will turn you all to stone." We also see Amy pushing Nikki to confront Eggman, but we would say he's a little more than apprehensive about the idea of stepping up to the evil sorcerer in control of a T-Rex. It turns out Nikki was right to be scared. Before he gets a chance to say anything to Eggman, the T-Rex kicks him, sending him flying through the air and smashing his head on a rock when he lands. When he wakes up, he's greeted by a white-bearded old man with a bow in his single strand of head hair. Hold on to your hats, this is where it starts to get weird. So it turns out that this kooky old man is God. He shows himself to Nikki to tell him to be brave and save everyone, but Nikki is scared. He says the guy is too strong. God then yells at Nikki for his lack of courage, saying that if he can find courage, then he will give him power. Nikki bolts up to his feet after his vision, and suddenly has the courage to put his foot down with Eggman, saying, "Eggman, get everyone back to normal. Or else I, the Prince of the Hedgehog Kingdom, will never forgive you." Eggman doesn't take Nikki's demand very well, and instead of stopping to return everyone back to their non-stone selves, he turns Nikki to stone and says, "Just stay like this. I'm gonna throw you in the slime." With this, the royal family is finished. As Nikki sinks to the bottom of the water, he grapples with his situation and what God told him. It's fair to say that he's having a pretty weird day so far. He comes to the realization that believing in yourself is what gives you real power, and he suddenly feels a jolt of energy. That jolt of energy Nikki felt was his body transforming into Sonic the Hedgehog. As Sonic, he has the power to escape his stone tomb and blast up through the water, landing confidently in a tree in front of Eggman. The villain immediately has a problem with him, calling him cocky. Eggman tries to turn Sonic to stone, but he's too powerful to be petrified. He tanks the spell and mocks the villain while he throws a tantrum. The first half of the manga was a little unconventional as far as Sonic stories go, but at least we now have the Sonic-Eggman dynamic in full effect. Sonic then decides it's time to stop playing games, and he shows Eggman who's boss by hitting him with a rolling attack, or what might be the first instance of Sonic's spin dash in any Sonic media. The attack smashes Eggman's tank, sending him and his T-Rex crashing to the floor in a dramatic explosion. The spin dash hits Eggman so hard that his animal skin clothing either disappears or flies off of his body. Either way, Eggman is now in the buff. Yep, completely naked and completely embarrassed. The hedgehogs are now pointing at him. Their eyes are popping out of their head. It's a whole thing. As the hedgehogs laugh and throw rocks at Eggman, he swears that he'll take his revenge on all of them. Even if, get this, even if I have to sell my soul to the devil. Then he jumps into an exploding volcano. If you thought that was as bizarre as this manga was gonna get, we suggest you prepare for the next level of weirdness. Oh boy. So here, on the next page, we see that Eggman has been reborn as Demon Eggman, and encased in the skeleton of what looks to be a human-animal hybrid. It's not clear if Eggman can fly now, or if the skeleton is acting as some kind of flying vehicle, but he has red eyes, an evil-looking staff, and a bone to pick with Sonic, who's soaking up the praise from Amy and basking in his win. His enjoyment is short-lived. After Sonic gets a smooch from Amy, Eggman strikes, blasting Amy with his new staff and turning her to stone. His power is different and much stronger than before. Eggman blasts Sonic, turning just his hand to stone. Eggman's beam is more powerful, but it's still gonna take more than one hit to petrify this hedgehog. But rather than taking another hit that might be his last, Sonic cuts loose and starts running, showing his true speed for the first time. Eggman tells Sonic that he's not gonna let him get away, and chases him into a cave. It looks like our hero has gotten himself cornered, and Eggman takes the opportunity to deliver the killing blow. But instead of being turned to stone, Sonic absorbs and reflects the stone beam, sending it back to Eggman and turning him and his skeleton into the freakiest statue you've ever seen. In his trapped state, Eggman gets schooled by Sonic. It turns out that he fooled the villain into chasing him into the Cave of Judgment, a place where evil returns to those who commit it. Sonic says goodbye to Eggman and zips past him, saying they'll never see each other again. Unfortunately, Eggman seems prepared to hold a grudge for a very long time. He implies that even if it takes thousands of years, their paths will cross again. With the day actually saved this time, Sonic stands tall with an unpetrified Amy. In the sky above them, God tells the hero that he has been granted the life of eternity, and that he will always come back to destroy evil when it appears, being revitalized through the soul of a courageous boy, Nicky. Woo! What a ride that was, eh? There's a brief strategy guide that covers the levels in Sonic 2 after the end of the prehistoric story, but after that is another awesome tale that takes place in medieval times. The first page of Sonic the Hedgehog Medieval Edition, Save Princess Amy, introduces us to God-type Sonic and Princess Amy. It goes on to tell us, even today, the ruins of an old castle can still be seen on the outskirts of the town. This is a story about 1,000 years ago, when the castle was still standing. We're then introduced to Count Eggman, another version of the sorcerer who has collected enough black magic that he's now more powerful than the king himself. Apparently, he tried and failed many times to get Princess Amy to marry him. It's a real Princess Bubblegum Ice King situation. One winter morning, he finally had enough and tamed a giant vulture to carry him and steal the princess. The same day, Count Eggman takes Princess Amy to his lair and asks her to marry him again. She's disgusted by his creepy face and refuses, but Eggman gives her an ultimatum. If you refuse to marry me, your country will collapse. That's a risky play. Let's see how this one pans out for old Eggman. In the next panels, we meet Anton Veruca, a lizard bully, and another character from the cast of Shogakukan's Sonic manga. In this story, Anton is a ruffian disguised as a wizard who sees the opportunity for an easy payday. He offers the king Princess Amy's whereabouts in exchange for 100 gold coins. The king coughs up the gold immediately, and Anton stays true to his word. Then Count Eggman shows up to laugh at the weakened king. What, do you want the princess back? You want her back? Come and get her! Eggman also makes fun of the king. Desperate for help, the king calls on Knight Nicky. He tells his knight that if he saves the princess, he'll allow him to marry her. Again, the 90s were a different time. Figuring that Anton must know how to find Amy, Nicky the knight goes to find him. Once he does, he asks Anton how he knew that Eggman had the princess. Anton doesn't seem eager to help Nicky, saying, "You idiot, why should I tell you?" Nicky replies with, "If you don't say it, I'll make you tell me," before turning into Sonic with a flash and dropping Anton with a single bonk to the head. Thoroughly convinced, Anton tells Sonic what he wants to know. "Fine, I'll tell you. The princess is locked up in the Valley of Death by a death robot." Little does Anton know, Count Eggman is secretly watching. It turns out the Valley of Death is well known by the hedgehogs as a place people don't return from. Nicky heads out to the valley anyway, and is followed by none other than Tails. Nicky tells Tails not to follow him, but goes with him anyway to provide backup. When they get there, Nicky and Sonic rush at the death robot with their swords drawn to defeat it, but Eggman pops out from the shadows with a surprise attack and gets the better of them. Nicky is dedicated to saving the princess, but Eggman strikes him and he faints. But the battle isn't lost yet, because God-type Sonic shows up to beat down Eggman and save the day. According to the manga, God-type Sonic is a hero who only appears when Nicky's heart is connected with God's heart. With Eggman defeated, Sonic scoops up Princess Amy. We aren't really sure what that means, but we do believe it's wholesome. The end. The final page shows a drawing of the manga's entire cast, which includes Sonic, the hero of the manga; Tails, real name Miles Prower, Sonic's little brother; Dr. Eggman, villain of this manga; Nicky, main character; Polly, Nicky's father; Charmy B; Brenda, Nicky's mother; Anita, Nicky's sister; Anton Veruca, Nicky's rival; Mud, Anton's brother; Little John, Nicky's best friend; Amy, Nicky's girlfriend. And with that, we've reached the end of the Sonic the Hedgehog book. As we said before, it's a very different take on Sonic, and perhaps more religious than you were expecting. But it is a piece of Sonic lore and history that we find fascinating. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. It helps us a lot. Do you know a piece of obscure Sonic lore? Let us know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. This has been a GameFAQs special.